regardless of how good or bad an agent did for that client, what they were going to get paid was determined by a third party, in this case, the seller and the seller's agent, in a room that that buyer representative was not invited into.
Hi, we're Rod and Melody Moser. We're real estate brokers in Salt Lake City, Utah. We've been selling real estate and been in this industry for 30 years.
Things are starting to change. So we wanted to give you a really brief, really quick overview because there's a lot of people that have no idea what's happened with the National Association of Realtors. You've heard maybe a fringe discussion about a lawsuit and what this means to you. A lot of people are asking us, do I have some money out there? If I sold my home over the last several years, am I going to get a piece of the settlement? The answer to that is yes. So we're going to touch really quickly on a lot of that. Then after that, we're going to dive a little bit deeper on what this actually means for you. What are the changes and how are the changes going to impact you as a buyer, as a seller moving forward for good and for bad? Or is this, is this just going to be a disaster? So the real estate industry has been shaken to its core by a recent settlement involving the National Association of Realtors, also known as NAR. This landmark agreement has far-reaching implications for real estate professionals, homebuyers, and sellers across the United States. In this overview, we'll do a deep dive into the NAR settlement, exploring its origins, key terms, potential impact on the real estate market, and what do you need to know?
The settlement stems from a class action lawsuit filed in 2019 by Missouri home sellers. The plaintiff alleged that NAR, along with several major real estate brokerages, had violated antitrust laws by artificially inflating commission rates. This lawsuit, known as Seitzer-Burnett case, resulted in a nearly $1.8 billion verdict against NAR and the other defendants.
So the first question is, do I get some of that money? And the answer is yes. If you are entitled to that money, you'll get an email, you'll get a letter, the way that all class action lawsuits work. Fill the paperwork out, send it in. You deserve your piece. Okay.
Great.
NAR's decision to settle. So let's talk about that. Facing mounting legal pressure and potential ruin, financial ruin, NAR decided to enter into a settlement agreement. The organization had two goals in mind.
So NAR did decide to settle. They had two reasons that they decided to settle that lawsuit. What are they?
Number one, to secure liability release for as many members, associations, and multiple listing services as possible. We don't want to be tied up in litigation with every possible real estate company, real estate agent, MLS out there. We wanted to be able to resolve that for as many people as possible.
Yes.
And the second one, to preserve consumer choices regarding real estate services and compensation.
Correct. Okay. What it resulted in is practice changes across the board. So every single real estate company, every single real estate agent has to abide by certain practice changes. The first one is buyer representation agreements. So now moving forward, since August 17th, 2024, every single real estate agent will be asking you, the buyer, to sign that buyer agency agreement.
Number two, compensation disclosure. So these agreements must include specific and conspicuous disclosures of agent compensation. What are they going to get paid?
Right. And the compensation has to be objective. So it has to be either a flat fee, a percentage, whatever it is, it's got to be outlined in that buyer representation agreement.
Looking for transparency.
Transparency.
All right. Number four, compensation limits. Agents are prohibited from receiving compensation that exceeds the amount agreed upon on that contract. So that's the limit of what they can actually get paid.
Yeah, no more bonuses, agents, and no more running around trying to find who is going to pay you the highest commission.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
And number five, the negotiability.
It's easy for you to say.
Yeah. You got to be able to negotiate statement.
So what this means is there are no set fees associated with with the purchase or the sale of real estate. So everything is negotiable like it always has been. But we wanted to make sure that this is implicitly stated so that you guys understand that it's a negotiable fee.
Yeah. In Utah, that statement is in bold and it is in all capitals, so you can't miss it. All commissions are negotiable.
And the final thing is MLS restrictions. So sellers can no longer offer compensation to buyer's agents through the multiple listing service.
I think this is the one that everyone is hearing about all over the news.
Yeah.
No more buyer agent commission. What are we going to do? How are we going to get paid? Let's talk about that next. Okay. So what is the NAR settlement? How is the NAR settlement impacting today's real estate market? First thing for professionals obviously is everybody's kind of wondering how they're going to get paid if they're working with a buyer. It used to be transparent on the MLS and now it's not.
Yeah. So, interestingly enough, I think that one of the biggest challenges that people had is that they felt like they weren't getting much of a customer experience when they were working with an agent. If there was one complaint that I hear more
Yeah.
often about real estate agents from people that that have had a bad experience in the past, it's that I felt like my agent didn't really do anything for me.
Yeah.
I looked for all the properties on Zillow and online, and I gave them the properties, and we went
All they
out.
did was open a door.
Yeah, they opened a
Yeah.
door. They pressured me into buying something that I didn't want to buy because they wanted to make their paycheck or whatever else was out there. So that was at least what I was hearing from people a lot, is that the experience they had with an agent was not that great. And
So, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think the reason for that is simple. It's that regardless of how good or bad an agent did for that client, what they were going to get paid was determined by a third party,
Mm.
in this case, the seller and the seller's agent, in a room that that buyer representative was not invited into, arbitrary of how good or bad the agent was. So whether I did a great job for you as a client or a
Yeah.
lousy job for you as a client, my income wasn't determined by my quality of customer service. It was determined by a third party in another room. So I was incentivized to take buyers to houses that were offering a higher commission. And so even if I didn't treat you very good, but I found the right house for you, I got paid more money.
Yeah, that does seem kind of broken. So there is a reason why we ended up here, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So for real estate professionals, there's three key changes that we're going to be facing, or we are facing right now in today's real estate industry. The first one is compensation model changes. That means basically, since the buyer and the buyer agent are talking about how the buyer agent's getting paid, it's going to be in writing, and there could be different ways of determining what the worth of that buyer agent is.
We're seeing a lot of new models come out, right?
Yep.
Things as simple as a charge per door to schedule and to take you out and open the door. So there's that. There's an additional charge in some cases for putting together a contract. There's an additional
Yeah.
charge for additional help, like if you want my help with appraisal negotiations, inspection negotiations, if you want my help processing your transaction, lining up the title companies and all of that kind of
Kind of
stuff.
like an a la carte,
Yeah, you can.
pick and choose what you want rather than paying the compensation or percentage at closing. These types of companies might be asking, or business models might be asking for compensation up front.
Yeah, totally
So,
different.
so
So that's
that
kind of
is
fun.
number two, is that because of the increased competition to get the buyer agency agreement signed, uh, agents are sitting down with buyers and promoting what they are going to do to earn that money and how that money is going to be paid. Increased competition is always really good for the consumer. It does usually mean that
Lower costs.
lower costs or
Yeah.
better service, one of the two,
Or
or
both.
both.
Yep.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we do number three on the real estate professional side. We expect that it's going to be an adaptation period. It's going to take us a while to figure out how to navigate these weird weird times. And I believe it's going to probably take 6 months. Rod thinks it's going to be a little bit less than that. You're pretty optimistic, honestly, but I think 6 months, and we're going to, by that time, almost every agent that's actively out there selling will have sold at least one property.
We hope. Yeah.
We
Okay.
hope.
And so, yeah.
Let's talk about how this is going to impact home buyers.
All right. So the first thing is, more transparency around what you're actually paying your agent for, and more accountability for the agent to be able to provide those services at a high level. We had a conversation in our office meeting the other day. It's like, hey, what is it worth to just open a door? What is it worth to help me find properties? A lot of times buyers are looking for properties on their own, going to open houses, looking at Zillow, looking at Realtor, looking at websites, finding properties they're interested in going and seeing, and then giving those to the agent. But one of the big benefits you get from working with a professional agent is they go off market. They go to,
Mhm.
other real estate agents that have properties coming on the market. They go to for sale by owners. They go to expired listings that might still be interested in selling the home that are not visibly available on the market, but
Yeah.
they are homes that are still available. So an agent that's willing to do that maybe deserves a little bit more. And the
Yeah.
number one thing that I think most people, when in talking to all of my clients, the one thing that they're the most grateful for, and the one thing that they feel like they would pay for the most, is help me make a good decision. Right? I can find a house that looks good, but is that house going to be valuable 5 years from now, 7 years from now, 10 years from now? What are things that I'm not aware of that might impact my saleability or the long-term profitability of this investment?
Yeah, so basically what you're saying is that now the negotiation power for how much that buyer agent is getting paid is put in the hands of the buyer who is actually receiving those services. I think this is a really good thing long term for consumers because you are in absolute control and those fees are negotiable. Now, they are worried, they meaning the industry, we are worried about the impact it might have on a first time home buyer, and that's why Fannie and Freddie and the VA, everybody is coming up with a way to be able to incorporate those into the loan.
Yeah, for example, if you find a house, if you're a buyer, you've agreed to compensate your real estate agent, but you don't have a lot of cash on hand and you're hoping to negotiate that fee in the contract. What if you find a home and that seller absolutely refuses to allocate any of the funds they're receiving in the sale of the home to pay your real estate agent? Can you finance it in? One of the big challenges that came up during this whole process was specifically VA.
Yeah.
Our veterans have gone out and put their bodies on the line to help protect our freedoms. And in exchange for that, they get some benefits. And one of those benefits is the ability to do a VA loan where they can come in with zero down and get good financing, programs. However, one of the things that's explicitly stated in the VA process is that you cannot use the financing to pay compensation to your real estate agent. Well, if you find a seller that's not willing to pay the real estate agent and you can't finance it in and you don't have the money, does that mean you're locked out of being able to buy some of those homes? I think that's a conversation that needs to continue.
Yeah. Yeah. And it definitely has been started. Sorry,
Yeah.
excuse me. So that conversation has been started and it will continue, I believe.
Another concern that's come up is first-time home buyers. Is this now where they're required to negotiate the compensation for the real estate agent up front? There's two other challenges, right? Are they going to opt not to work with a real estate agent to try and save money and put themselves in a riskier situation, trying to handle a very complex transaction involving a lot of money and a lot of moving parts by their own without any help from anybody? Or are they going to have to pay? Because again, similar to the VA situation, are they going to have to come out of pocket to pay for that? And is that going to limit their ability to purchase a home?
Right. So let's flip that around for the home sellers and then we'll circle back around a little bit because what it means for the home sellers is a little bit of pricing flexibility. Now, what we're noticing in the market that's, occurring right now is that, if you look in the past, the buyers really were paying that buyer agent fee anyway. It was
100%.
built in it was built into the package, meaning it was built into the price. And so now moving forward, all it's gonna mean is your net as a seller, your net is gonna stay the same, whether or not you paid the buyer agent. So, if you don't pay the buyer agent, your price is gonna be a little bit lower. If you do include that, it's gonna be a little bit higher. It it basically comes out in the wash.
Yeah, we've had a lot of people ask us recently, does this mean I'm making more money as a home seller? And the answer is probably not.
Yeah.
Your value and what you're going to walk away from is less determined by the commissions and more determined by the market, supply and demand. That's the way it's always been. That
Yep.
was high school economics class, right? We all learned that stuff. So, no, the value's not going up. No, the net value's not going down based on commissions and the way that real estate agents are paid. It's still, your value is still going to be determined by supply and demand.
That is correct. Now, another thing that is going to be impacting the sellers, we believe, is that again, the same thing as on the buyer side, on the seller side, the sellers are going to be able to, they always have been, sit down, interview several different agents, pick the agent that best suits them and their family's needs, and compare, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
Compare, contrast, and hire the best.
So this always comes up. What is one of the most valuable things you can do when hiring a real estate agent? You know, I hear this all the time. Well, they all do the same thing, right? They put a sign in the yard, they put the property on the multiple listing service, they put it on a bunch of websites, and then they sit back and wait for something to happen. I could, if that's the case, and you're all going to do the exact same thing, I should just hire the cheapest one. And I
Right.
agree. If that's what you're looking for, just find the cheapest one. There's lots of options out there. However, one of the most important things that people tell me that they look for in a real estate agent is that agent's ability to negotiate on their behalf.
Hmm.
So keep that in mind as you're interviewing, is that now that there's an additional piece to now negotiate, not just the price and the terms, but now there's also commissions that will be negotiated. Hiring the best negotiator is probably one of the most important things you can do moving
Yeah.
forward.
Someone with experience, I think, makes a difference as well because when you're a real estate agent and you are performing these negotiations on a daily basis, that means something more than someone who only negotiates a real estate transaction, which is your biggest investment, your biggest asset, most likely uh, on, maybe they only do it once or twice a year. Be careful. Ask those questions as a seller. How many transactions are you closing every single year? So, we do have a free consumer guide that's put out by NAR. So, check the link in the description below and we'll have that. Or you can visit soldbymoser.com. We've got the information, the latest information will be there as well.
So
Okay, let's switch.
yeah.
This part is gonna be okay. Let's switch into what we think is going to be happening to the real estate market long term. We have a few things that have come down from other sources, but I'm also very curious to have this conversation directly with you.
Okay, very good. So let's talk about competition and commission structures, right? Like with everything, the more choice you have, the more competition that's out there, that typically leads to a lower cost and better service. So, in
Mm-hmm.
my opinion, over time, commissions will probably go down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just because of the sheer number of choices that you have. I think the last I'd heard, and I may be way off, we had something like 1.6 million real estate agents actively practicing in the United States. If you break that down by 50 states,
That's a
that's a
lot of
lot of freaking
competition.
agents. That's quite a bit of competition. So that should be now. Look, there's a lot of people that are fleeing the industry right now as things are getting a little bit tougher. As the number of homes being sold has shrunk to all-time lows as a percentage of homeowners over the last couple of years. There are people leaving the industry, which might drive costs up. So it can affect it, but I think long term, better
Yeah.
service, lower costs.
I believe so too. I think, looking back at the last 30 years, anytime that we had some kind of a change where it was a little bit different, like say somebody learns a technique that you have as a real estate agent, that's another person competing against against you. Well, all that does is make us better. So I think it's actually going to be really good for you, the consumer, because it is going to make us be better as professionals.
How do you think this is going to impact home prices? The settlement in
Okay, so
particular. Yeah.
I got this question the other day by someone on the Salt Lake Board of Realtors, and I personally don't believe it's going to have much of an impact on the final sales price because, like I was saying, you don't either?
Not at all.
Not at
Not at
all.
all.
Yeah. So you agree with me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it has nothing to do with compensation. It has 100% to do with the market. And
Yes.
people ask me, Rod, what do you think? Well, I think that high interest rates cause an affordability problem. There's still a lot of people that want to own homes, but the high interest rates are causing their monthly payment to be higher than they can afford, which shrinks the demand pool. So, more than commission structure, if you start to see property values come down in the near future, it's more of an affordability problem. It's more of a supply and demand problem
Yeah.
because the demand is shrinking, the supply is growing. If you see values come down, it had nothing to do with the lawsuit. It had 100% to
Yeah.
do with what's going on with
I
supply and demand.
I totally believe that moving forward, all of the buyer agent commissions will be negotiated in the purchase contract. They're going to be transparent and out there so that, everybody can see them, which is good.
That's a
I
great thing.
I think it's a really good
Yep,
thing.
it's a
And
great
so
thing.
I don't think it's going to impact home prices either. I do think, like you, that the market is going to dictate the home prices more than the commission
Yeah.
structure.
It's always
So
better if we disagree, so we'll have to find something to disagree on. But this one's pretty easy. There's like not it's not that complicated.
Yeah, yeah. I find it interesting that real estate professionals would wonder if it's going to impact the prices because it isn't.
Yeah.
It just simply isn't. It doesn't make sense.
One thing that will happen, I think, is we're going to start to see some newer business models come into the industry.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of different business models in real estate tried over the years.
Yes.
We've had flat fee models from as far back as I can remember when I got in the industry, back in the 90s, which is
A long
a long
time
time ago now.
ago.
There were flat fee
Are you
services.
old?
Yeah, I'm old.
Yeah.
I lost my hair. I started to have gray in the beard. They've been around. They've tried. They haven't really gotten a lot of traction. There have been other models that will, for a small fee, put your property on the MLS, and that's worked to some
Mhm.
degree.
I think industry innovation is really going to have a good impact on our industry, which is what you're saying. It's the different business models are going to be tested and tried, and the best ones are going to prevail, in my opinion.
Yeah, interestingly enough, one of the plaintiffs by the name of Seitzer actually opened up their own real estate company over the last week or so, and it's another model. It's been tried before. It's been around before. They're going to give it a go. Wish them the best, but that probably won't work because it hasn't worked in the past. I think the innovations that people are really looking for is let's make this process a lot easier.
Yeah,
Let's
I
make it simpler. Let's make it easier. Are there things we can do to cut some costs, to cut out the middleman? I think that's going to be tested and
I
tried.
think I believe that some of the innovation is going to come from the technology side, things that maybe you and I don't see right up front, but somebody out there is going to come up with some innovative thing to change our industry even further. And this is going to help. I think it's transparent pricing with some of the tech that we are seeing out there. Also, we're going to see the agents really are going to be innovative in what they're going to offer you.
Yeah. There's, people are testing things in AI for AI search models to see, hey, show me the best valued homes. And based on these criteria, I think that that's going to come. And at the end of the day, the one human piece that I hope never goes away is help me make a good decision.
Yeah.
Right? What are the blind spots? What am I not aware of? What other questions should I be asking? What should I know about my property after I move in? There's a human side, and I think that's probably where people are still going to require the use
Yeah.
of real estate agents.
Yeah, I agree. This business is a relationship business. We always hear that as real estate agents. But what that means for you as the buyer or the seller or the consumer is that you have somebody on your side when you're making these decisions. And when you hire a real estate agent after you've interviewed several of them, as we would say, please do, you know that you hired somebody that you can trust and whose opinion matters. And now with transparent pricing, you know that they're not going to steer you to, as a buyer, to the house with the most commission because you've already talked about the commission up front and you've agreed on it. So I think it's going to be really good.
I think it's good for everybody.
Yep.
Yep. So while the NAR lawsuit seems like a big deal and it seems like it's changing everything in the industry, how much is it really going to impact values? Very, very little.
Right.
How much is it going to impact commissions being paid? Probably very little. I do think costs will come down
Yeah.
slightly, but there's a reason that people have continued to hire real estate agents and use them. Um, is it, at the end of the day, was this just a big waste of money and a money grab by attorneys? And, no.
Oh, you don't think so?
No, I don't think so. I think what happened needed to happen. I think it was
Yeah.
important, um, because I think that the biggest change that people are going to see is a higher customer service,
Yes.
a much greater attention to your specific client and making sure that you're finding them the best home possible on the market for what they're looking for. So was this a big waste of several years and billions of dollars? No, I don't believe so. I think that the final outcome is going to be great for consumers.
Yeah.
And I actually believe it's going to be great for real estate agents as well, because great agents are probably going to get paid more moving forward than less based on how they take care of their clients.
Yep. Agreed. Well, thank you for taking the time to watch and please subscribe to us. We're a brand new channel at this point and we have a lot of information to share with you. And if you've got any comments or questions, please drop them in the comments below. We're going to be happy to answer anything that you've got.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.